future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Woohoo! Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and Happy New Year. It is 2015. I wrote that for the first time on a check today, and as much as I hate writing checks, it was nice to write 2015. So I hope all of you had a Happy New Year. I actually stayed up late, past 2 o'clock, which was huge for me. I don't know if I was awake on the car ride home, but I definitely was up. But anyway, this is Lori H. Schwartz here with Tech Trends Impacting Your Business. And today we have the pleasure of my partner, my business partner, Mr. Brian Seth Hurst, Managing Partner of StoryTech. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a big studio hand.
How did you fit all these people in here?
Once again, we are able to use the clown car theory, and we shove a lot of people in here. Oh, someone just tossed some underwear at you. That happens.
Thank God, I thought my appeal had died with a old year.
No, you're still getting underwear, Brian. You're still getting underwear. So Brian is here to talk about tech trends as in terms of storytelling and content and the impact that all this new technology is going to be having on storytelling. And that's one of the big focuses for our business at StoryTech, is really doing that translation for content creators and technologists. And we're about to head out to Vegas on Sunday for a week-long show called the Consumer Electronics Show, which is a big event we do every year. We do tours, and we're going to be walking technology clients, brands, Facebook, all sorts of folks around to understand all the stuff that everyone's going to be seeing. And we create a trends document, which is going to be available to everyone in a week, called the CES Trends, StoryTech at CES Trends. And that'll be available through Synopsys, our partner, and also on our StoryTech site. But one of the things we wanted to do today is just take the hour to talk about content trends, because it impacts everybody. Everybody is a storyteller, even if you don't think of yourself like that. Whenever you're communicating anything about something you're trying to sell or a project or anything you're doing. And Brian is the father, or sometimes they call him the grandfather.
Thanks, Liz.
Of cross-platform storytelling. So we have some very specific trends that we identified for CES, and I thought we would dive into them. So the first one that we talked about a lot is cutting the cord, which has been talked about so much the last couple of years, but now it really starts to get real, and that has to do with getting off of the cable subscription. And what are some of the behaviors and phenomena happening around that?
Well, I wanted to go back for a second because, storytellers forever have more or less been at the effect of technology. So first the technology comes out, and then we have to figure out what to do with it.
Exactly, yeah.
But when the motion picture camera was invented, the very first storytellers back then were the engineers, and they actually danced with each other on screen to prove the value of the technology. But once the technology got into the hands of the creators, they started to modify the technology. And so our idea behind StoryTech and behind this trends document and behind CES and behind the other educational efforts.
Behind a lot of things. We're
Yes.
behind a lot of things.
we're ahead, but we're behind. The idea being that once the technologists are able to collaborate with storytellers, or when storytellers are able to understand the technology, then they can understand how to use that technology to tell a story, to build an audience, to build a franchise that lasts a long time. But if they don't understand technology, then it becomes a burden to figure out how to use it, especially if you're in television or film and all you want to do is tell a great story.
Right.
So for filmmakers, we'll talk to them and we'll say, well, 3D, if you're going to be using that, here's the way you might use that, or what are different approaches in camera and lighting and all the technology that makes film better and more efficient to produce. It's the same thing in television. So you have the technology of production, and then you have the technology of consumption.
Right. So I want to talk about the consumption piece, just because everyone always talks about how will someone watch my show. That seems to be the most immediate fear and also proposition in terms of business model that storytellers are facing. Like they'll say, who do I make a deal with? So what do you think is going on behavior-wise in terms of content consumption?
I'm probably jumping way ahead, but it's so important to watch the audience. and to know what the audience is doing. So there are many platforms now for distribution. YouTube is starting to look for programming instead of channels. You have
Well, now, what do you mean by that?
well, instead of, start a multi-channel network, now YouTube is saying, well, what if we programmed actual shows? What if instead of investing in a long-term channel, we were actually going to program a show? And Laura, from some of the clients that we have that they've been talking to these clients about a series, and how a series would be defined. What's the time length? What's the
So
tradition?
instead of a YouTube content creator doing their 3 minutes every week, they're going to professional content creators and saying, we want 30 minutes weekly.
Or taking those YouTube stars and turning them into series stars as well.
And longer form.
Yeah.
Right.
I marvel at the things that, it's like infinity goes in both directions, and so does production, long form, very short form. Vine, I know we talked about that as a trend. And somewhere in there, the story has to be maintained. And so I always ask, when people are consuming content, it's watching the audience. So you ask, okay, well, people, I want to watch, Ohio State football yesterday. If I'm not home, sorry, it would be, I don't know when this airs, but go Bucks. But if I wanted to see what was going on my phone, I actually couldn't yesterday because I didn't have the application.
right thing,
Yeah,
right.
so all I could do was the scores, And I believe that consumers have a preferred platform. Like, Laura, you were nuts about Fringe. I'm sure you would much rather watch Fringe on television first and on a large television. But if you couldn't have access to that large television, you would watch it where you could.
Well, I do that now. I don't let the distribution stop me, the limitations of the distribution.
And you're typical of
the
audience.
I will fight to find that show. And if they make me go illegal, I will go illegal, I mean, I do my best.
That doesn't reflect the views of StoryTech.
I'm just saying that is very typical. That I have had a lot of millennials say to me, I absolutely don't mind paying for content, but if they don't make it available to me and if it's not easy, then I'm going to go back to my old methods.
But you also have binge viewing. You have there's a behavioral
shift
thing that happens.
Yeah.
It's not just a shift. It happens with specific pieces of content. And, when we're working with programs, Lori, and series and content, it's very important to know what the audience behavior is around that specific genre.
And we've
content.
talked about that with a lot of clients as technographics, which is understanding what the behaviors are, what the hours of consumption are. We had a long conversation with a client who does a lot of distribution in the South with moms and housewives who typically are afternoon daytime TV viewers. And we don't know, well, what do they do? Do they use their iPads? Do they have tablets? What do they do?
There was a great discussion and a lot of things brought up because it was like, you have the story for a specific demographic, but how does that demographic behave with the content and each other? And what technologies are they using? And how can your show integrate into their lifestyle? So it becomes a lifestyle.
And it's so interesting, too. I don't know if you found this interesting over the last 6 months or even longer, but even broadcasters and brands that have so much information about their audience don't seem to really know what they're doing on these platforms.
But I think that's typical. You're asking an institutionalized industry who's used to ratings, used to reading ratings, actually used to breaking up ratings and in the film industry as well, into under 25, over 25. I think what Legendary did this year was fascinating in the respect that they have their own data analytics department
Which
inside.
I think a lot of studios do now.
But this was different. They really marketed Godzilla to the people most likely to view the movie. And so they went to the platforms where those people were living, and that's where they marketed. And instead of male, female, over 25 and under 25, they actually broke it down in a much more deep
Right.
deep
And
way.
brands are doing that now. Brands have that capability through social media platforms to get into that, but they're certainly not doing it with the deeper level of entertainment content.
It's amazing to me that there is a whole profession of behavioral experts that's coming up now.
Yes,
that are personal. They know people's lifestyles. They know how people behave. They're either experts on millennials or experts on moms. And you bring these people to the table, and the reactions you get, Lori, we've watched this. The reactions you get is either the client is like completely fascinated by it and says, "Oh my God, I didn't know any of this. How do I know more?" Or the other side of it is,
I don't believe you.
Get
out.
Not only I don't believe you, but we already do this. And
Right.
the truth is, they don't already do
Right.
that. And
Well, everything is
sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Right, and it's also there's so much that's so new all the time. So I find us in meetings where we're telling something to somebody and they're just like shocked but
this
it's
is
new.
the larger context of business, Lori.
Yeah.
So the idea of us, our company, being able to ride the trends. Literally, that's what we do. I mean, I just sent Lori an email this morning about the Moo monitor that is transforming the dairy industry, because instead of taking care of cows as a herd, they're taking care of cows individually
Through sensors?
Yeah, through sensors, through and monitoring what they eat, even how long they ruminate to make the cows. This was the great part.
Happier?
To make the cows happier.
Well, because their milk is better.
Because the milk is better. You know, you're a dairy man's daughter.
Yeah, that would have revolutionized my pop's business if they had it when he was around.
Indeed.
You know?
But back to the main point, which is by knowing these trends, all of these trends affect business and impact business and change the way people do
I think
business.
we need a moo sound, by the way.
A happy moo sound. So it's changing the nature of business and to be able to respond. So a lot of times when we go in and we speak to a client, our engagement changes scope right in the middle, because we'll see a need that can be met by a new technology that we have vetted, that we're sure will work for the client, that they might not otherwise have access to. And that's why I think it's so important that these experts that are fleet of foot are coming up, and some of the people that we get to work with all the time who are not only a lot of fun, but have deep knowledge. And I think this ability, you say it's happening so fast, this ability to be able to alter your strategy quickly and alter that strategy with a business model behind it, that's the future. If you can't move quickly, right. Laura, you talk about companies being left behind in the dirt a lot, or companies being disintermediated by other companies.
Disrupted out of everything that they've been the star of for years.
If you can accept disruption as a way of life.
As a normal way of life, right?
Yes.
Right.
Then you are likely to be very successful.
I think it's cultural. So talking about disruption, so you have Jason Kilar, who is the CEO of Hulu, which in itself was a disruptive platform. And everyone kind of said that's going to go away, but it's doing really well.
It was really interesting, all the predictions about that in the beginning. They're going to fail.
And they're doing really well. And it's like the one authentic online platform for a lot of the broadcast networks. And it's become and there's a premium model and a free model. But so he leaves. And starts a new company called Vessel, which just came out, but it's kind of quiet. They're kind of stealth right now. But Vessel is a YouTube play, but it's going to be a subscription service, and they're going to actually give profit to the content creators. So what do you think that's a reflection of?
I think that's happening as well. I mean, we talked about it now. I can't remember the
platform. And YouTube's
platform.
launching subscription channels as well, so they're moving into monetization as well.
Right, but this idea of sharing revenue with creators.
Yeah.
I cannot remember the company. I'm not off vacation yet. My brain's not off vacation yet. But the idea of rewarding people, it's a games platform.
Yeah.
Help me, Lori.
Which one? What isn't a games platform, really?
This is a games platform where the high-end members of the community, I want to say the most active members of the community who are creating games are actually making revenue and sharing revenue off the games they're creating.
Twitch?
No.
You're not talking about Twitch?
No, I can't remember. It's in our trends document.
Okay.
So when it goes
Roblox?
to the live yes, Roblox. Thank you, Lori. Thank you. So the idea of rewarding, and we're participating in a very major music business project that does the same thing, that gives the creators.
Everyone's trying to figure out how do we engage the community. The community now is no longer just audience; they're contributor, they're revenue generator.
They
need
to
have
be
stakes.
Rewarded and encouraged and. In some cases, mentored. And
so the very nature of audience is changing, which is interesting. And I think people are starting to understand that, but they only understand it as, I have to have Facebook and Twitter. But it's more than that.
You just reminded me of something which is really important.
God damn it, it's more than that.
It's omnichannel marketing.
Yes.
It's the way things change. It's that suddenly a device that that doesn't carry content is capable of carrying content. And I think that with the explosion of content, you really are going to have to change the way you, and whether you're a brand or you're a consumer products brand or you're a content brand, you're really going to have to change the way you converse and interact with your audience. Even more so than it's been in the past. We all know it's a two-way relationship. It's give and take. We all know the impact of social media. As
You're describing my marriage now.
Yeah. As you well know, I had that big run-in with Budget Rent-A-Car. And
This is a good story. This is just a side note, but this is a great story.
Yeah, it was a misunderstanding. I just want to thank the woman whose name escapes me at the moment, too. God, this is terrible.
I'm sure it's in our trends
document.
somewhere.
We should have had anything to drink on New Year's Eve. But I was right. They were wrong. Their policy would not allow me to be right. So I escalated. And I escalated right onto social media, at which point the social media team got back to me right away and said they couldn't do anything, but here's the route to go to get something done.
Right.
And I did, and I got it done, and I made the right phone calls, and we also had a colleague that had them as a client.
You had the right contact, too. For some of us.
But I wouldn't have known where to go unless the
the
social media folks had told me to go. And then the next thing I know, I get this note, the case is closed, everything is resolved, Merry Christmas.
Right.
And so the idea
And you wrote back and say, I'm insulted because I don't celebrate Christmas.
No. I wrote back and
I
said.
And you escalated to the Vatican.
I did escalate. I said, you're a saint. But the idea of
having a
being
voice.
people's friends, and I put that in quotes, but I have to know that if you're a brand or you're a content person, that you're actually addressing me. It reminded years ago, Lori,
personal.
When we traveled and we stayed in hotels in Europe and whatnot, and you stayed at the same hotel or the same hotel chain, and you walked in and they called you by name before they even saw your credit card.
That never happened to me, Brian.
Oh, really? They pick up the phone.
Well,
they know who you are. They know what you ordered last time.
There was a point when I was staying at the W a lot in New York, and that did happen because the staff recognized you over the course of a year. You would see the same people. So
I have this question for you.
Yeah.
So Google has this new thing.
Yes.
That sits. What's her name? She got another voice. It's not Siri. It's not Cortana.
Yeah. It's their. I forget the name of it. It's their AI engine. It'll be a box that sits in your house and listens to you and helps you with purchases.
But it's listening all the time.
It's listening all the time.
And this is what's scary to me. This is where technology and my life. I know we're like totally off track, but this is like
it's
where
life
technology in my life. All of a sudden, you have this spying device.
Yeah.
That's monitoring your behavior. Same thing with in-home, smart home electronics that are knowing where you move to room and how you behave.
There is a scary piece to all of this, and it foretells some science fiction, some dystopian science fiction that we've all been watching for years.
Your marriage again.
My marriage again. But it's also very promising, and a lot of what all this personalization and involving the audience is about is making something relevant and contextual so that I'm in Starbucks, I get a 3-minute teaser. I'm at home, I get to see the whole thing, and I don't have to tell it. I'm in my living room on a big screen.
And I agree, but to play devil's advocate here, where is the line? And
I think the line will find itself. As everything does. Some tech takes off because it found the line, and some doesn't. So I want to ask you guys something, addressing to Tony, who's doing our engineering today, the owner of the station. We're honored. So I tried to make an Apple Genius Bar appointment the other day because I was changing things around, and they have so kajiggered the system now that you can't you have to go through a whole answer question tree to get a Genius Bar appointment now, and it is actually hard to do. Like, I could not get to Genius Bar appointment.
Wait, in store you couldn't get it, or before you went?
No, before I went. In the browser, when normally you would just go and make an appointment, I couldn't do it. And so I went to the store and I bought some equipment, and then I said, I've had a devil making a Genius Bar appointment. He said, I'll get you in right now. And he got me in, and I said, so what is going on? And I said, oh, yeah, they totally redid the system to actually make it difficult for you to get an appointment, which was true. And he said it's because people were showing up all the time and not having backed up any of their systems and having made some really simple mistakes that could have avoided the Genius Bar appointment. So they found that the Genius Bar had become the
emergency room.
Yeah, it really was. And so I think they've gone too far now, because I tried every A/B question to just get to a Genius Bar. And it turns out you have to choose a hardware problem. You have to say it's a hardware problem, and you have to follow the right trees to get an appointment.
That's a tip that Lori just gave everyone.
Yeah, that's right.
For all you Apple users.
But it's actually, so that's an example to me of, so my initial thought was the story I want to tell about Apple right now is that they've gone too far, that they're actually not this friendly, community-driven brand that we've all grown up with, but that they've actually responded too harshly to this phenomenon. Because in the store, I heard 3 other people saying the same thing, that it was too hard. So I almost went onto Twitter to blast something, but then I thought, oh my God, they're going to track me down and mess with all my Apple products. And I'm so dependent.
There's that line.
Right, and I'm so dependent on iCloud right now. Like everything I have now is Apple, and I have a lot of Android stuff too because I have to understand both worlds. But then I was afraid that they would mess with me.
Well,
so here's the question too: is so as a content creator and looking at new content trends, how much do you have to listen to the audience?
So that's really important to me, and there's the line between how much you let them influence you and how much you play with them. And I think new storytellers, not even new, but I think storytellers like Jon Chu.
And who's Jon Chu?
So Jon Chu did Never Say Never, G.I. Joe 2, The Retaliation, and he did LXD, which was
that's the Justin. The Never Say Never is the Justin Bieber.
Yeah, not the James Bond.
James
thing.
Bond. Whatever happened to Justin Bieber? Is he still around?
That
is
is not
jail?
a content or tech conversation, so I can't say I'm following that.
I heard his Twitter followers went down from like 6 million to 3 million when they cleaned the account, which I find very humorous. All right, go ahead. Sorry, Ryan. Jon Chu.
So, but the idea is that the audience, they want to feel like they're part of the story. They want to be heard and they want to feel included. So when you acknowledge that, like John is in conversation with his audience all during production. So during G.I. Joe 2, The Retaliation, he and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, they had their Twitter followers and they were in conversation with the audience while they were in production, which went a long way to diehard G.I. Joe fans trusting Jon Chu with the brand.
But are you saying, though, because I've had people push back on me, because I did ask this, by the way, to the Fringe creators, to the showrunners.
Every showrunner is different.
Right. The Fringe guy said to me, we definitely pay attention to the fan conversation, but we've created our Bible and our story arc months and months before, and it's very true to our vision.
But that doesn't mean that you can't mess around in digital and with ancillary content with engaging the audience, which is where I think Heroes a long time ago set the bar for that.
I just think Fringe was one of the greatest shows of all time.
So what I'm saying is that
time.
Every show, I'm not disagreeing, I'm just moving on. Every showrunner and the way they look at the audience and the way they look at technology is different. So a lot of showrunners are engaged with the audience. Damon Lindelof, he always is engaged with the audience. Carlton Cuse, Tim Kring, and now Neil Baer. These are all television showrunners. Yes,
that now for the first time, some people know the names of these folks.
Yeah, they're becoming rock stars.
Because they never would know them before, but everybody knows who J.J. Abrams is, and everyone's waiting.
And Eric Kripke
and everyone's waiting for the new Star Wars under J.J. Abrams.
You bring up a really good point because these are storytellers and showrunners who actually factor in the audience and the technology while they're in creation for the story.
So are they sitting down and saying, what's new out there? What can I do? Or are they, or is it more, sort of organic than that?
It's both. It's both. Again, it depends. Like someone like Tim Kring, he has people coming to him all the time and showing him different things, and his natural curiosity drives that forward.
And you're working with Tim Kring on a project, so
yes.
You understand.
I have this experience of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're watching him evolve what he does based on what's
going
on.
We just had this exchange over the holidays for something for the series that we're working on. We just had this exchange over the holidays, and his replies to me and his questions to me were so cool. It was like, wow, this is a great question. How can I answer this question?
Because he's very connected to. So he's very connected to what's happening.
He's connected to a story world and an audience behavior.
So let me jump off then back to our trends again, because one of the things we talked a lot about is what was happening with Taylor Swift, and not so much her pulling out of Spotify and all of that, but more about the fact that she created her own app as a distribution model. And then we also had Paul McCartney actually shoot a 360 VR of his concert in Candlestick Park so that you could actually feel like you were sitting next to him. So all of a sudden you start to see that music and live events and all of these different things will now have these VR experiences where I can actually maybe pay a ticket to be sitting next to Paul McCartney on his piano and have that view. And what's the business model around that? And so where does it start and stop, you know?
Well, there's a couple things that you're covering here. So the first thing is that, you know, how are you bringing the audience into the experience? And when you talk about Taylor Swift first, a really loyal fan base, I think that not only is she incredibly talented and incredibly beautiful, but incredibly smart. And
she is really smart. I mean, I'm sorry, but she has the
don't be sorry. She's a great example.
Well, it's just that people often put her down, and the thing is,
she just shakes it off.
Yeah, but the thing is that
sorry,
there's no way she could have navigated the business the way she has with just smart people around her. I mean, she has smart people around her, which is smart, but she's intuitive, you know.
She was also able to, it's numbers too, she was also able to not only accumulate an audience, but continue to give them value in something different. I think if we were dissecting Lady Gaga, who's now big with Tony Bennett, that had to burn out.
Right.
But someone like Taylor Swift reminds me of Madonna. Because Madonna was able to lead and reinvent.
Right. What do you think about Katy Perry? Do you think she'll be able to do the same thing?
What I love about Katy Perry is that she has a sense of humor about everything she does.
Yes.
And so there is this edge of fun with her.
She's very engaged in her community as well. Like everything she does also is community driven. And so you see this new crop coming up that is figuring out, okay, how do I deliver to my community? What new tech is there out there?
But what I've also heard, and I can't tell you where I heard this, but what I've also heard is there is a personality and an interaction that happens with the community that they, like the Taylor Swifts of the world, are actually playing that part out in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
But then, so it's not like the fans are invading their personal life. There's a way that this is being done right now where personality and celebrity is actually a character that's being played in the world.
But that's,
and it keeps the...
I don't think that's unusual, nor is that new.
But that was the big fear with Twitter, was that people's personal lives would be exposed, they would be endangered.
I think that there are strong professional PR crafters out there who are managing all that.
I want to go, yes, because Carmen, another group that was very successful, it was all management and PR, and you were led to believe that they just came up on their own. I wanted to go to the virtual reality thing and the idea of a business model behind that. And
because I think that's so powerful. Like, first of all, if I don't have to leave my house, but I get to sit next to, you know, I don't know, Neil Young. Well, would I want to sit next to him? I'd still want to hear.
It
you know what I'm saying?
The only time it would be powerful is if he were turning and talking to you specifically in your home.
But what if?
In other words, there has to be that area of a personal address. We've talked about this with the technology.
I just feel like, look, if I could get a concert ticket sitting next to someone like that, it might be a really interesting experience. Are you saying it would get boring after a while because there's not a...
the idea of the reason you want to be... I don't know where this is going. But there is nothing, I don't think you could actually replicate the exact feeling that you would have being at a concert. Forget the virtual mosh pit, that probably wouldn't happen. And I caution us because, you know, the trend of meetups, people going right out into the real world and having these experiences. Ingress is a great example of that, the Google Ingress game, that's multiplayer game. So we're balancing between technology and virtual connection and real connection. But you cannot replicate that concert goer experience virtually. Now, if you get to sing with the band, we've talked about that, you know, coming in through Google Hangouts or Google On Air, and suddenly you're appearing on stage with the band. Or if you're sitting next to and you're chose to be the virtual person's next and you're engaged with that person, as like Bruce Springsteen pulling up, what's her name, on stage, Courtney Cox on stage to dance, you have to feel some very personal connection for that to work. Otherwise, you're just a spectator. And it's fine to be a spectator, but a technical audience and millennial audience, they are naturally engaged.
I think that's going to be very interesting because maybe this is a boomer millennial thing, but I would definitely or Gen X, I would definitely pay to be virtually somewhere in that environment. Like on stage with the Fleetwood Mac and getting to see how weird looking they all have gotten.
I think
Come on,
the
that would
difference,
be
Lori,
awesome.
is I think the difference is you have a novelty and then you have a reality. And if that was able to get past the novelty, like 3D sort of has been able to get past the novelty
Right.
because of the reinvention of the technology, so that it now, when you
It's
move
more virtual reality now.
Well, no. With 3D cameras, the lenses were steady, so you didn't have didn't work the way our eyes worked, and then
Yeah.
it was fixed.
Right.
So now it's more of a
Yeah, but
tactile
the
kind of.
immersion. Well, I think the immersion piece we should readdress in a few months because I think it's very interesting what business models might come out of that.
Well, Lori, I mean, your husband is engaged in this,
Yes.
where you're actually able to immerse yourself in an environment, and I think in terms of training, whether it's military has been doing it for years,
Yes.
flight simulators have been doing it for years, medicine, being able to make those mistakes virtually before you make them in the real world.
Right,
I
right.
think that's incredible. You combine that with wearables and the data that you get back from the person
And
who's
that will be
immersed in the
huge.
environment.
Right, that's
and
what I
and we haven't
think.
even talked about data.
Right. And I think that is huge. You know, data is at the core of all of this stuff, and why we're able to deliver such personal experiences is because of the data. We're getting immediate feedback from all of these digital channels, and then we're able to interpret and send it back. And you and I have talked a lot about the little data that is impacting all of this. So I wanted to jump to another topic which is in this content umbrella, which has to do with education and online learning, which is another trend that we talk about. Why is online learning so big right now, and how will it impact storytellers?
Well, first of all, you can teach behavior through story. I mean, that's what we're doing with Conspiracy for Good. You know,
Which is
basically
your project with Tim Kring.
with Tim Kring. We're not trying to push something on someone. We're showing
Yes.
people what is possible within the story.
Okay.
What could you do? And then you can participate and actually do that. See conspiracyforgood.com for more information. That website.
Promo!
Hey, I'm not ashamed. We do good in the world, so it's great. But what was the question? Oh, the data.
Well, I was asking, like, what? No, I was asking. It's very holiday. I was asking, what about online education? Why is that so on fire right now? Because
And you asked about storytelling. Well,
Yeah,
first
I
of
think
all,
that'll be
people
sucked
learn.
in.
I just want to say that people learn through story. That's why history is so much fun, because they're telling you a story.
Right.
So if you just learned the details, I don't know if you saw The Imitation Game.
Not yet.
If
It's
you
waiting
just,
for me.
Yeah. If you just read the story of the, about the
It's
decoding
just so
and blah
hard
blah blah.
to watch
But
DVDs
if you
with a little one around.
yeah,
you know?
but if you get the story
Yeah.
and you're sucked into the story and you identify with the story, you'll never forget it. So people
Right.
learn, and they learn when they're laughing.
Needs to connect to you somehow.
But I also think that the internet has become a resource. I mean, I just watched American Sniper yesterday.
Okay.
And they didn't tell you in American Sniper exactly how Chris Kyle died. They had one line at the
Oh
end.
my God! You just gave away the.
Everyone
whole-
knows. It was in the news.
Is that Bradley Cooper?
Yeah.
He dies.
Bradley doesn't, but
No, the
yeah,
character he plays.
there's been a lot of publicity. I'm not giving away anything. But my thought was, okay, I really need to go, but I'm not telling you how. I really need to go look this up. And the fact that I can go look that up, just the same as I can go look up how to make a chocolate flan,
Yeah.
it's all educational. And I think
yeah.
people, I think the opportunity, whether it's Khan Academy, to become kind of an autodidact,
Yes.
I think that's a trend that no one is actually discussing,
Right.
which is a generation of autodidacts
Right.
which is self-learners, who have the
I
information.
knew it was self something, and I didn't want to, jump into what self-pleasing thing you were mentioning. But wait, can I?
you imagine what it's like working with this
I know,
person
but-
day after
But
day
I
after day?
here's something that happened to me just the other day.
And I
which,
love it.
Well, here's the thing that happened to me the other day, which I think is so interesting to your point. So I'm at a live theater venue. I went to go see Pink Martini at the.
Yes, I saw the post on Facebook, and
at
I
Disney.
have the Von Trapp album.
Well, at Disney Hall, they were amazing, and they had the Von Trapp family singers. It was 4 of the grandchildren of Kurt, who, if you guys remember from the movie, is the incorrigible one. They were the grandchildren. They were amazing. And we were just sitting there, and the main singer for Pink Martini is a woman by the name of, oh my God, now I can't remember her name. Forbes. What is her first name? Well, they got
See
her-
why you need
Carney.
the internet to learn?
Carney Forbes was her name, I think, or Carly Forbes, something like that. They were. My husband kept saying, She's one of the Wilsons.
Carney Wilson?
Yeah, she's related to Wilson. She thought she was one of the
Beach Boys.
Yeah,
Brian
kids.
Wilson.
Or the other side. Oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm being such a Dorcas. Daddy and Mama Phillips.
Okay.
Carney Phillips, or not Carney Phillips, but Phillips. What's it?
Carney Wilson.
There's Carney Wilson.
And-
There's Michelle Phillips.
Right.
Mackenzie Phillips was her daughter.
Right. So one of the Phillips, my husband thought. China. That's it.
No.
Now here we go. Let's take out that last few minutes. China Phillips. He thought that's who was singing, and I kept saying, no, it's China Forbes, and he goes, no, that's totally John's daughter up there. She's related. That's probably her married name. And I'm like, no way, dude. That's just not possible. And then she invited her sister to come up, and Scott goes, that's Mackenzie. And I'm like, you're on crack right now. So we went to the cloud. And indeed, he had mixed up some things. He was right about like half of it, and the other half I was right, and whatever. But we instantly knew we could find the answer. And we wanted the answer because our enjoying the live show was kind of dependent on having the context about all those people.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't even read the program guide. Like, I don't even know why I took one, because the truth was I left it at the theater because anything I wanted to find out afterwards, I just went online for.
I think there's.
So I'm used to having my friend with me,
Yeah.
my gigantic 6+, which is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I'm used to having that instant access to that DVD content now all the time.
I think that is a way of life. I think you're not the only one. Mm-hmm. And I think when people
Is that
think,
wrong though? Am I getting
no,
stupider?
I don't think it's wrong. I just think,
because I know I can find the information.
Well, I don't know if this happens to you, and I don't know where it is, but a lot of times I'll think I want to look up something, and I store it in my head, and then when I pick up the device to go look it up, I can't remember what I wanted to look up.
Yeah, so I'm always
there's
making
just-
notes for myself
There's
too.
just so much,
Yeah.
and I do think endemic to this whole thing is you have to know when to turn off.
Right.
Because you can't process what you learn unless you're away from it. It's like when you're in school and you're learning something heavily in class, you might not get what you learned until you have the distance from it.
It's a layering too. So going back to online learning, you think that's because of all this that we're talking about, and how will storytellers leverage that?
Well, first of all, I think whatever infrastructure enables online learning is the same infrastructure that enables participatory storytelling. So this call and response is really big. And I, as the storyteller, you as a storyteller, we know what tools are available for us. Online learning, if you ask me at the depth of my being, I think it's the hope for the world because it makes education accessible.
And democratized.
To everyone, yes.
So what will happen to Ivy League education? Do you think that'll still
Well,
be?
there's a big thing going on with Ivy League education
Right.
and online learning, and they're trying to reposition and look at what they do.
Right.
But this democratization, this great leveler, it means that someone who would not have been able to go to Harvard or Yale
Right.
can actually get that kind of education somewhere else. The thing that's missing, which will now happen in the virtual classroom,
Is community.
This community, this
Right.
dialogue, this give and
Right.
take. I mean, I had a teacher in college, rhetoric and political and social action, and that was a freshman class, and it was the best class I ever had in my life.
Because of the teacher.
Because of the teacher and
Right.
because of the students.
Right.
Because
I agree with you. So I've tried to take online classes, and I find now maybe it's because it's not a imperative for me. I'm not trying to get a degree or anything, but I found myself not doing it every
Okay,
week. Like
so
I'm
here's what
supposed
you need to do. This is what I am doing. So here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
You get people that have the same interest as you. Mm-hmm. If they're your friends or they're
So
your
you're creating community.
Yes, and then you all take it together, and then you all discuss. And we're all doing this around cooking.
So
Because my whole thing...
So a couple of your friends are doing cooking?
Yeah, and we're not even in the same place. I mean, we're a couple are in Illinois, one's here, another one's in Philadelphia.
Wow.
But we all get on and we discuss.
So
and
are
so
you taking
we're
a
like,
class-
okay, you try that restaurant.
Are you doing
try
classes
this.
together? Are you doing a class together?
We're doing the same curriculum together, but we're not doing it at the same time.
And there's cooking curriculum?
Oh my God, yes.
Oh my God. I mean, I follow recipes all the time and I watch how they do things, but God, would I love to
Well, so what we do, and here's
husband
my whole
something
thing.
that has taste.
So my plan when I retire is to open a restaurant in Palm Springs that's only open on Friday and Saturday nights, only has 20 seats. So I experiment a lot. So
That could just be your backyard.
Yeah,
You
so,
don't have to
part,
do-
yeah. So part of what we do is we take what we learn. There's the basics that you learn, and then there's what you do with the basics. That's how you get new recipes. So we're tweaking, and I forget what I did like 2 weeks ago. It was an abysmal failure. just a
Something
business.
that you cooked was.
Yeah, I said, okay, this didn't work. The only problem is you're not together, so you can't taste each other's stuff, so you have to take the word for it, you know?
Right. So
and it
there's
was like,
that
well, these
piece.
are hard as lead. And then
But
the
is
woman
this
in
where-
Illinois said to me, she said, I will just bet that you didn't have enough yeast in there or that you didn't let it rise. And I said, of course oh.
Right. So you're group thinking together, which is something we talked
Yeah,
about.
so what I'm
in the
saying is
trend,
if you think it's the same thing with a workout class.
Right.
If you go to workout and you see
need
the
to
same
be
people in
inspired,
your
right.
class,
So
you're
it's-
motivated by other
It's
people.
the gamifying again. It's the community. It's the status. It's the human need to share and to be driven together. The flock mentality. All of that. I
and
mean,
fun.
right. I mean, do you work out by yourself? I'm asking.
I do.
I'm asking Tony.
I do. I actually like working out by myself.
But are you impacted at all by other people around you telling you how well you're doing, or do you share information about it? Because I know that's a big thing.
I
Just
mean-
the ones that give them phone numbers.
Right. You know, I was a trainer for
A long
12
time.
years,
Yeah.
but I've been working out since I was 15.
So do you find that other people are doing better when they have group stimulation?
Some people do. Like I said, I actually don't do as well if I have a
Group.
workout partner.
Yeah.
But I used to teach aerobics, and now aerobics is different because I think it does motivate you when there's a room
Yeah,
full
'cause
of
all those
people.
The
that
aerobic-
are,
camaraderie that you make,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
meeting someone for the
and the
specific purpose
Yeah.
of
classes
taking that class.
show group of people doing it. So you try and find someone in the audience that looks like you. So, and cooking shows, going back to your cooking curriculum, cooking shows now have images and pictures and visualizations going along with the show, and then you can play back. Or what one of our clients is doing is the show happens and then the post-show content is different than the show content, so that it's more easier to use after the show has aired.
Well, the other thing is you get to decide, just as a thing like I was like, okay, I probably need to clean this carburetor out, lawnmower carburetor. So let me go look this up and learn. And there was, of course, the whole thing about cleaning the carburetor up. And after the first 4 minutes, I was like, okay, I'm hiring someone to do this.
Because you realized it was
Because
too...
I didn't want to do it. It was going to be too complicated. And
Right.
it wasn't a skill that I thought I would like to have for the rest of my life.
Right.
Whereas knowing how to properly caramelize the top of
Right.
creme brulee is a skill I would like for the rest of my life.
No, you know, it's so funny that you say that, because it is true. Like, there's some software now that I'm just have no interest in learning. Like, I used to learn new software all the time for what I was doing. I just had to know how to edit and how to compress stuff and do all the stuff. And now I'm just like, you know what? I'm hiring someone. Even though all the information is there, the amount of time to learn this and to absorb it.
That's what I've been trying to tell you every time you introduce a new organizational software into the business. It's like, I
Well,
don't
we
have
need-
time to learn this.
No,
I
no.
don't want to learn this.
We need time. We need organizational software.
We have great organizational software, but you know where all the bells and whistles are. And you say to me, well, didn't you just do that? And I'm like, you know what? I don't have time to ring that
Yeah,
bell.
it's true. There's so much stuff, and you do have to smallerize. And again, what this will become is niche audiences who circle around things that are relevant to them, right? And I'm sorry, I'm beating up the mic today. Circle around on the things that are important to them. So they'll circle around content and shows they care about. They'll circle around tech they care
But
about.
that brings up the whole other thing is that if you're isolated
Yeah.
how do you get access to information, or how do they access you? You know, it's like you put all the same people in the same room. You have an homogenous community. Everybody agrees with everybody. And then
But is Tim Kring going to care? Is Jon Chu going to care if he has a niche audience instead of a big broadcast audience? Like, is that going to be
it's
significant?
very interesting that you should ask that question, because those two men, they have both.
Right.
They
So
do.
both allows them to do their pet projects, which are smaller, and the big projects, which maybe pay for the multiple houses or their lifestyle. But for new folks coming up, do you think niche is the new black, along with orange?
I think that it's a natural evolution. I think that people gravitate towards something that they can resonate with. And so niche becomes, scrapbooking. Whoever knew?
What a huge business that is.
Exactly. And it
Huge.
looked like it was niche, And if you didn't know about it, you would not know the billions and billions of dollars.
Oh, but anything you get into, like if you go to one of those knitting stores, or there's how many people are in this country right now? There's what is it? How many millions of
be like
people?
350, I think.
350 million
I
people.
remember when it was 200.
I know.
Yeah. So there's millions of people in this country right now. So you figure even if you only have if you at least have 10 million interested in something. That's when brands start to pay attention, is when you've hit 10 million.
I have a friend who's an independent filmmaker, and all he does is make horror movies. And he's really good. And now those movies are starting to catch fire because of all the little horror movie blogs that are out there.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, he's like a cult figure within this industry.
Right, so then there's the
and
cult
he
thing.
just wants to make horror movies.
Right, but maybe he'll cross over because that's what Taylor Swift did, right? She crossed over from sort of that country thing to popular. Maybe that's what eventually happens. But is it okay in this world we're talking about where I have a certain I like to watch stuff on my mobile device. Is someone going to create content for me, my age, my topics I like, where I travel to, what my lifestyle is?
It's already there.
Will I be able to dial up, Lori, this is who Lori is, give me content that I will like?
It's already there. It's already happening. They're already reading the data. Things are offering up. When you watch anything online, you're being offered, like, if I'm offered one more home entertainment center,
right?
Just from the, because I went and I browsed once for a home entertainment center.
And that's the data piece that we don't have enough time to get into, but, the ad following you around the rest of your life.
But so will the content.
Right.
And that's how you'll be reached. And the other thing, Lori, is this moment you start to look for
I want that.
stuff.
I want discovery. I want help.
The moment you go out to discover, they will meet you halfway.
Right.
That's kind of what happens.
Right.
You search, they see you, and they start to deliver stuff to you.
Right.
Not even going to say this, what it was, but my father has a Netflix account that's on my account, right?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to set up his television at Thanksgiving, and I go inside.
He's one of your profiles. In your thing?
And I never look at his profile, and I turn on his profile, and I'm there like, what that? And see all these recommendations. I'm going to say what they were. So what the hell are you watching?
What was it?
I'm not telling you. But it was like, oh my God. And his girlfriend says to me, I know, right? So
well, that's like the old joke about TiVo is I watched porn once, and now it's the only thing TiVo's recommending. But I mean, I do like when things come up.
I had no idea he had an interest in samurai.
That's a whole subculture too. But what I'm saying is this data will allow the content to find us and get very tailored and niche and specific, which is great. And going back to what we started the conversation off, which is cutting the cord, finding the right platform that's for you. Do you think now content creators coming up will have a sense of all that?
I do.
Because of their age, or
yes,
just
because of their age, because of their lifestyle, because they've constantly been connected, and they will constantly be connected. Look, in my own experience, Lori, I have a smart scale. I have a smart cooker now, a crock pot that I can program and cook from all over the world.
Right.
And the next generation and the generation after that is it. They're connected. That's it. So it's a connected lifestyle. It's like you see cell phones in movies now and phone booths in movies when,
Right, or the big in-between, suitcase stuff. I mean, I'm just about to actually take out Protection One out of my house because I know that we'll be able to do it ourselves without having to pay.
Especially after this CES, because
after this CES. So I have to wrap up the show, but thank you, Brian Seth Hurst, managing
we were
partner
all over the place today. That was fun.
StoryTech. But there's a lot of new content trends coming up, and please look for the StoryTech trends from CES 2015. We'll be rolling them out through our partner at Synopsis, and they'll also
story-tech.com.
That's right. They'll be on our website, and we'll also be in Vegas all week long, tweeting and giving tours and hanging out, and then I'll be back in a week to do some more tech trends impacting your business. So this is Lori H. Schwartz coming to you from our fabulous Universal Broadcasting Network, United Airlines, I was thinking.
Time to travel.
Mr. Tony, thank you so much.
You're
and
welcome.
Brian Seth Hurst, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. It
And
was
have
fun.
a great first week of the new year, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see you in a week.
Shows that make you laugh. Shows that make you think. Music that moves you. It could only be one place. Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.